Each year, millions of Americans set new goals to wake up earlier, eat healthier, exercise regularly, build skills, or start a business. But within just a few weeks or even a few days, the initial excitement fades. They make excuses, procrastinate, then promise to start again tomorrow. And the cycle repeats. Motivation arrives quickly, but abandons us when we need it most. That is why Stoics do not place their trust in motivation. They rely on discipline, something that does not shift with emotion, something that holds firm when we are tired, discouraged, or uninspired. To them, consistency is not a choice, but a way of life. It is not just how you achieve your goals, it is how you master yourself. So how do you force yourself to stay consistent? How do you turn discipline into identity? This script will guide you through the journey of building unwavering willpower, overcoming procrastination, mastering habits, and living a life untouched by emotional turbulence. This is not empty philosophy. This is a call to action. 1. Motivation is a liar. Each year, millions begin with a promise. They write plans, post affirmations on the wall, create vision boards, buy journals, sign up for gyms, and swear this year will be different. The first week is full of excitement. They wake up early, eat clean, learn a new skill, and work with purpose. But soon, that feeling begins to fade. One morning is too cold, one workday too long, one moment of boredom. They skip a session, then another. And before long, they look up and find themselves stuck in the same place. The story doesn't end with a dramatic fall, but with hundreds of tiny surrenders, all rooted in a phrase that seems harmless. I'm just not feeling motivated today. We often believe we need to feel ready to begin, but that's a subtle trap. Motivation makes us feel powerful in the moment, but quietly abandons us when we need it most. It whispers, "Do it tomorrow. No rush. Just take today off." And we obey, not realizing that softness is eroding our discipline, draining our self-respect, and weakening our ability to commit to ourselves. Motivation is no solid foundation for any journey. It is like wind, strong at first, but gone when the weather shifts. If you build your future on motivation, you're building a house on sand. The Stoics understood this well. They never relied on inspiration to act. They believed in duty, in principle, in personal responsibility. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic minds, once wrote, "When you struggle to get out of bed in the morning, ask yourself, were you born to feel cozy under the covers or to do the work of a human being?" That question isn't meant to inspire. It's meant to remind you that your existence isn't about waiting to feel ready. It's about doing what must be done, whether you feel like it or not. Motivation is what the weak wait for. Discipline is what the strong build. While most people wait for the perfect moment to act, the Stoic acts even in the most imperfect conditions. They don't wait for the right mood to train or for the stars to align before they begin. They work like farmers sowing seeds, steadily, persistently, rain or shine. Because they know that action is the only seed that grows into progress, while emotion is just a passing cloud. The difference between success and failure isn't found in how much motivation one has. It's found in what one does when motivation runs dry. Most people stop, make excuses, and delay. The Stoic moves forward, not because they feel like it, but because they know what must be done. When you stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start asking, "Is this aligned with the person I want to be?" you step out of the trap of motivation and onto the path of true consistency. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wait for inspiration to do it. You do it because it's necessary, a non-negotiable daily act. Apply that same mindset to the things that matter: learning, physical training, work, personal growth. When right actions become defaults, you no longer need motivation. You're not driven by mood swings. You don't need to talk yourself into it. You act because that action defines who you are. The truth is, every great achievement is built on small, quiet, repeated steps, without fanfare. And if you only move when you feel like it, you'll never go far. But if you learn to rise, repeat, and persist even when nothing inside you cheers you on, you will build what others only dream of: real strength. Stoics don't believe in motivation. They believe in themselves, and they prove it in action every day. 2. Don't choose. Default. Consistency doesn't come from having many choices each day. It comes from eliminating as many as possible. When you let yourself wake up and ask, should I work out today? Or should I eat healthy? Or should I finish my tasks? That hesitation is the entry point for procrastination to sneak in. Stoics don't live by negotiable questions. They live by predetermined action. They don't choose, they default. In the modern world, we're surrounded by endless choices. You can wake early or hit snooze, exercise or scroll social media, read a book or stream a show. These choices might seem harmless, even like expressions of personal freedom, but left unchecked, they become burdens. Each one drains a bit of willpower, and when your willpower thins, surrender comes easier. That's why the most consistent people don't decide each day. They decide it once and simply follow through. When you make an action a default, you remove emotion from the equation. You don't need to feel like it, don't need to convince yourself, don't need to build motivation. You just do it because it must be done. Like brushing your teeth in the morning. No one wakes up asking, should I brush today? You just do, because you know what happens if you don't. Treat your essential habits the same, as non-negotiables, not decisions. Stoics see default behavior as a mental liberation strategy. They understand that every time you pause to consider, should I or shouldn't I, you give away a piece of your inner strength. Epictetus taught, if something is right, do it immediately, without hesitation. That's not just moral advice, it's psychological strategy. When an action is locked in as a non-negotiable obligation, your mind adapts to it as second nature. Eventually, you no longer struggle with whether to do it. It becomes who you are. The reality is this: hesitation is the seed of regret. Every time you pause instead of act, you open a crack for weakness to slip through. And it's in those cracks that we start breaking promises to ourselves. To avoid this, you must establish non-negotiable principles. Actions performed daily, not because you like them, not because you have time, but because you've declared them essential. Start with a simple list. Wake up at 6 a.m., drink water, move for 15 minutes, read 10 pages, avoid your phone for the first hour. These small acts, once turned into defaults, free up mental energy for what truly matters. Instead of wasting strength deciding, you focus it entirely on doing. That's how consistency is formed, not from inspiration, but from structure. Defaults don't kill freedom, they empower it. When you're no longer wrestling with hundreds of trivial choices, You preserve strength for higher pursuits. Stoics understand that real freedom doesn't come from choosing everything. It comes from not having to choose at all. They free themselves from hesitation by anchoring their lives in structure. And once they've lived in that structure long enough, they no longer need discipline. They become discipline. 3. Build identity, not isolated actions. Most people fail to maintain habits not because they lack effort, but because they approach it the wrong way. They focus on behavior, temporary actions, instead of identity, the person they want to become. They say, "I'll try to wake up earlier. I'll try to eat healthier. I'll try to work with focus." But behind the word try is always an open door to retreat. Because when you're only trying, you haven't committed. And without commitment, there's no compelling reason to continue once emotions fade. Stoics don't try, they become. They don't just perform actions. They tie those actions to their identity. They don't simply exercise. They are people who view health as inseparable from dignity. They don't simply study. They are people who see knowledge as the foundation of reason. They don't simply practice discipline. They are people who define themselves by self-mastery. And so, their actions aren't momentary efforts, but reflections of who they are choosing to be each day. Picture a professional athlete. They don't wake up wondering, "Should I train today?" They train because they are an athlete. Training is not an option, it's part of who they are. Likewise, when building a new habit, don't just ask what you need to do. Ask who you need to become. If you want to read consistently, don't tell yourself, "I should try to read more." Say, "I'm the kind of person who never goes to sleep without reading a few pages." If you want to work with discipline, don't think, "Today I'll try to focus better." Remind yourself, "I'm the person who always finishes work on time, without excuses." Every action you take is a vote for the identity you're shaping. When you get up on time, you cast a vote for being a self-disciplined person. When you overcome laziness and train without feeling like it, you vote for being someone resilient. Conversely, every time you give in to emotion and skip what needs to be done, you quietly vote for being inconsistent. And over time, what is repeated becomes who you are, not by what you say, but by what you embody. Stoics don't care about putting on a glamorous show. They build the person within. They know identity is not formed by inspiration, but by consistency. That's why even the smallest action matters, because it contributes to a living system of values. When you live as a disciplined person, you need no validation. Your repeated actions are proof enough of who you are. This isn't just about changing your mindset. It's about changing the way you see yourself. When you stop thinking of yourself as someone trying to change and start living as if you already are the person you want to become, your actions will flow more naturally. You won't need motivation to act, because the action will feel aligned with your true self. And once your identity is firmly established, behavior is no longer a battle. It becomes an expression. 4. Embrace discomfort as part of the path. We live in an age that constantly seeks to avoid discomfort. Everything is designed to be faster, easier, more convenient. With a single tap, you can order food, snooze the alarm, or escape stress with a few minutes of scrolling. Slowly, the mind learns a dangerous reflex. Face difficulty, avoid it. Sense discomfort, delay. feel uneasy, assume something must be wrong. But the truth is, every path to growth is paved with moments of discomfort. Stoics don't avoid discomfort. They walk into it. They understand that pain is not a sign of failure, but proof of transformation. Seneca once wrote, "Hardship trains the mind as labor trains the body." That simple phrase carries a deep truth. No growth happens in the comfort zone. The body only grows stronger through resistance, and so does the mind. If you always choose the easy route, you're turning away from the chance to forge inner strength. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is the silent coach guiding you to a better version of yourself. Each time you fight sleep and rise on time, each time you finish work despite being mentally drained, each time you say no to temptation and yes to your commitment, these are the moments your will is being forged. Others may not see it. No one may cheer. But something inside you is shifting. You're becoming stronger than your excuses. Many mistake discomfort as a sign they're not cut out for it, not good enough, or lacking talent. But Stoics know discomfort spares no one. It visits the beginner and the successful, the weak and the resilient. The difference lies in the response. Ordinary people retreat. Stoics step forward. Not because they enjoy pain, but because they know that beyond the pain lies the shaping of resolve. Remember, you don't need to like discomfort. You just need to stop running from it. Instead of asking, "How can this be easier?" ask, "How can I be stronger?" Instead of waiting for perfect conditions, learn to move within real ones. Because the truth is, the days you feel least like doing anything are the days your actions matter most. Anyone can act when inspired. Only the disciplined act when they feel nothing at all. And then, something extraordinary happens. The discomfort that once made you hesitate becomes the signal that you're on the right path. Every time you face delay, fatigue, boredom, you'll no longer panic or doubt yourself. You'll recognize it. This is part of the process. And in that acceptance, you'll find yourself no longer ruled by emotion. You'll be guiding your journey with calm, strength, and without needing comfort to keep moving forward. 5. Kill the fatigue of choice. There is a kind of fatigue that most people don't realize is silently killing their discipline every day. It's not the fatigue of overwork, nor the result of major stress. It's the fatigue of having to make too many choices. You wake up and must decide, get up now or sleep a few more minutes, eat breakfast or skip it, work out or delay it, start work or watch a few entertaining videos. These small, seemingly harmless decisions consume a great deal of mental willpower. And that depletion is exactly what makes it easy to abandon important commitments by the end of the day. The Stoics understood this well. They didn't let each day become a string of endless deliberations. They killed off choice by building clear structure. They didn't ask, "Should I work out today?" because they had already made training a non-negotiable, fixed at a specific time. Like breathing, like brushing their teeth. They didn't waste energy choosing clothes in the morning because they simplified their options, avoiding unnecessary distractions. They didn't spend time figuring out how to start the day because they planned the night before. The fewer the decisions, the more energy they had to act without hesitation. Every time you allow yourself to deliberate, you're opening the door to procrastination. When you ask to train or not to train, you're initiating a negotiation. One comfort tends to win. When you ask, "Should I work seriously today?" you've already set up a mental challenge to your will. Stoics don't give emotional whims the power to decide. They establish a life principle. If it's right, there's no need to ask. Just act. Structure is the ally of consistency. When you create a fixed schedule, when you clarify what must be done daily, you eliminate hesitation. You don't wait for the right feeling. You don't need to convince yourself every time you begin. Your actions become instinct. Not because you're extraordinary, but because you've cleared the clutter from your mind. Stoics don't let discipline depend on inspiration. They design it through simple, clear, and unwavering habits. One effective strategy to practice this is to create a non-negotiable list. Actions you will perform every day, regardless of mood. These might include waking up at a fixed hour, 30 minutes of exercise, journaling, reading 10 pages, not checking your phone before 9 a.m. Once these acts are default, you no longer need to choose, only to execute. And each time you follow through, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who acts, not someone who is ruled by emotion. The truth is, successful people aren't those with stronger willpower, but those who protect their willpower by simplifying life. They eliminate unnecessary decisions to preserve clarity for what matters most. Stoics don't live by impulse, they live by system. And when that system runs day after day, you'll no longer be drained by choice, because you've already chosen once for the entire journey. 6. Win the inner battle. There is no enemy more dangerous than your own mind. It's not external, it has no shape. Yet it's the source of all procrastination, fear, doubt, and the excuses that stop you from acting. You can have clear goals, detailed plans, and a strong system of discipline. But a vague thought like, "Maybe it's okay to rest today," can shake the entire foundation. Stoics understood that the greatest battle is not out there in the world, but within the mind. And only when you master your inner world can you truly remain consistent on your path. The mind is skilled at spinning stories that sound reasonable. You're tired, you've worked hard enough, you need rest to recharge. Today just isn't the right day. But if you keep listening to those whispers, you'll live forever in the comfort zone and never stray far from where you began. Stoics don't suppress emotion, but they don't let emotion take the wheel. They look directly at their thoughts, question them, and choose to act with reason, not react from feeling. Epictetus once said, "No one is free until they master themselves." True freedom isn't doing whatever you want, but acting rightly regardless of how you feel. Winning the inner battle doesn't mean silencing the mind completely. It means controlling your response to the whispers within it. When your mind says, "Take a break," you can hear it, but you don't have to obey. When it whispers, "This is too hard," you can reply, "That's exactly why I must do it." Every time you choose action over delay, resolve over doubt, you reclaim control over yourself. One of the most effective ways to train this is to practice separating yourself from your thoughts. When a negative thought arises, don't let it steer your actions. Observe it like a cloud drifting across the sky. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who chooses how to respond. Stoics don't let their inner world become a lawless place. They build it into a fortress, one where only thoughts aligned with reason and virtue are allowed to dwell. Moreover, they actively train the mind through small daily challenges. waking up earlier than usual, taking cold showers, working when they don't feel like it, rejecting cheap pleasures. These acts are not self-punishment. They are training for mental resilience. Just as muscles are built through repetition, inner strength is built each time you refuse to be a slave to emotion. Over time, the whispers telling you to give up will lose their power. Winning the inner battle doesn't happen in a day. It's the result of hundreds, thousands of right choices made when wrong ones felt easier. And each time you overcome yourself, even slightly, you reinforce the identity of someone not easily defeated. That is the firmest foundation for lasting discipline. Not because you're stronger than others, but because you've learned not to be your own enemy. And that is a victory greater than any conquest in the world. 7. Turn boredom into an advantage. One of the reasons many people fail to maintain long-term discipline is because they confuse boredom with being off track. They believe that if a task feels too repetitive, if a habit no longer sparks excitement, then maybe they're doing something wrong. But that's a dangerous misunderstanding. In reality, every truly effective process contains boredom. You cannot train your body without repeating the same basic movements. You cannot write well without spending hours typing in silence. You cannot build a sustainable lifestyle if every day you change methods just to stay entertained. The Stoics understood the true nature of progress. It isn't flashy, it isn't dramatic, and it doesn't deliver dopamine like a short video or a sudden compliment. It's forged in moments no one sees, no one applauds, and where there's no inspiration. But it's in those repetitive moments that character is shaped. Consistency is not born in excitement, but forged in the quiet, monotonous, and steady days. Like a fighter who repeats the same punch 1,000 times. The disciplined repeat right action, even when it no longer feels novel. Instead of avoiding boredom, Stoics embrace it as part of the path. They don't demand life to be interesting. They demand themselves to be right. They understand that when the mind rebels at the thought of another dull day, it's not a sign to change direction, but an opportunity to practice inner steadiness. When you learn to sit down and do the familiar task with a fresh mindset, not seeking inspiration, but presence, you've taken a meaningful step in mastering yourself. Picture yourself building a brick wall. Each brick is a small, steady, seemingly insignificant action. But after months, after years, you will have a fortress no one can break. On the other hand, if you change course every time you feel bored, you'll only build scattered half-walls. Many directions, but none deep enough to form a foundation. Boredom, when seen correctly, is an invitation to go deeper, not wider. To turn boredom into an advantage, you must change your perspective. Don't seek excitement in action. Seek fulfillment in discipline. Don't demand that every day be stimulating. Let your value come from the fact that you didn't quit. Stoics don't rely on novelty to stay motivated because their motivation doesn't come from fleeting emotions, but from the identity they've committed to. Every steady day of work, every repeated habit performed without joy, becomes proof of inner growth. Boredom is not the enemy. It is the quiet companion of those who are truly serious about self-development. Ordinary people stop when feelings fade. Stoics continue, not because they feel like it, but because they are committed. And from that perseverance, they build a strength no one can shake. because it doesn't depend on inspiration, but is nourished by consistency through repeated action, day after day, in silence. 8. Discipline is no longer what you do, it's who you are. At the beginning of the training journey, discipline feels like a challenge, a daily test to be passed. You must remind yourself, plan carefully, resist temptation, and repeat right actions even when your feelings resist. But if you persist, if you keep going through each wave of fatigue, each moment of doubt, each task you perform without wanting to, then, eventually, something shifts. Discipline is no longer something you do. It becomes a part of who you are. Stoics don't pursue discipline as a short-term goal. They live as if they are discipline itself. When your behavior becomes fused with identity, you no longer struggle with the question, should I do this? Because the action has become instinctual, like breathing, like eating, like walking. You don't need a reason to do what is already part of you. You don't need to summon motivation to act. You act because you cannot do otherwise. Not out of force, but because you would no longer be yourself if you didn't. This doesn't happen in a week, or a month, or even a year. It's shaped through hundreds, thousands of right choices made when no one is watching, through every time you keep a promise to yourself, without reward or recognition. Gradually, you build an inner foundation so solid that when you skip a vital act, you feel something's off. Not because you've broken a rule, but because the act has become identity. And when action reflects identity, you no longer need to push. You simply live in alignment. Stoics understand that inner strength doesn't come from flashes of inspiration, but from a quiet shift in self-perception. When you no longer say, I'll try to be disciplined, but instead say, I am someone who lives with discipline, your behavior naturally aligns with that definition. Because we always act in ways that confirm who we believe we are. If you think you're someone who gives up easily, you'll keep doing that. But if you believe you're someone who is steadfast, even in exhaustion, you'll strive not to betray that image. This is the key difference between those who succeed for a moment and those who succeed for a lifetime. The first becomes what they commit to. The second keeps trying to become. When discipline is part of your identity, you no longer ask yourself what you should do each day. You already know. You don't need external motivation because the internal compass is strong enough to lead. And in that moment, you achieve a deeper kind of freedom. Freedom from inner conflict, from decision fatigue, from the anxiety of inconsistency. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to be someone who keeps promises to themselves. When discipline merges with your identity, you no longer have to force yourself to do the right thing, because doing the right thing is simply how you exist. It's no longer a task. It's the person you've chosen to become. And nothing is stronger than someone who lives each day rooted in that identity. I used to live in familiar cycles, setting goals with excitement at the start of the week, then quietly giving up by the end. I found every excuse to justify my inconsistency. Too tired today, not enough time yesterday, I'll make it up another day. But the more I delayed, the more I lost faith in myself. Each time I broke a promise to myself, no matter how small, I felt my self-respect erode quietly. And I realized the problem wasn't a lack of motivation. It was the absence of a clear identity to protect. When you haven't defined who you are, Every action feels like an experiment. Easy to start, easy to quit. Things only began to change when I stopped trying to do the right thing and started living as if I'm the kind of person who always does the right thing. I no longer created choices each morning. I just did what needed to be done. Whether tired, bored, or uninspired, I acted. Not because I'm extraordinary, but because I refused to become the version of myself I once felt ashamed of. I shifted from discipline in behavior to discipline in identity. And it was this quiet transformation that gave me the freedom I had long searched for. Not the freedom to do everything, but freedom from the inner tug-of-war I once thought inescapable. If this message helped you find even a bit of strength to keep going, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next content. No one is born consistent, but anyone can train to become unshakable. And you, if you persist, will be living proof of that truth. See you in the next video.